Dr. Delgato, welcome to the Pet Buzz today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fleck, and hi, Charlotte.
Hi.
So given a choice between a free meal and working for its food, Dr. Delgato, what would cats prefer?
Yeah, I think whenever you're looking at research, you have to consider that your own cat is an individual and take that into account. But in our study, what we found was overwhelmingly the cats preferred to eat food that was freely available instead of get it from a food puzzle where they had to do some work.
In other words, cats were freeloaders.
They
wanted to eat off of a tray. They didn't want to climb on a counter. They didn't want to work a food puzzle. They just wanted to snack and grab and go. Is that what they eat a little bit and grab and go, right?
Grab and go is perfect.
Right. That's kind of like Hayden a little bit.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, our cat, he's a grab and go kind of guy. But
Yep.
he grabs and go in multiple rooms, on the kitchen table, in the second bedroom, right?
And his own personality is his own personality.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So, let's compare this to other animals. So do most animals prefer to work for their food? A behavior called, I got this from you, contra freeloading. I sound really sophisticated when I said it to myself a few times in the mirror, and I thought, wow, I'm scientific it down. Go ahead. Contra freeloading.
Yeah, so contra freeloading is a psychological phenomenon that's been studied for many years. In fact, there was a study of cats 50 years ago looking at contra freeloading, and that was one of the things that inspired us to do our project. But in general, what we see is that in animals that live in captive environments, so animals in zoos, animals in sanctuaries, animals in laboratories, they do, when tested, seem to prefer to work for their food rather than get it for free. And there's different theories about why this might happen, including maybe they're just bored. Maybe this is stimulating natural behaviors, right? Because animals in the wild do need to forage or hunt or do other things to get their food. They don't just get a bowl of whatever they eat. And also, the act of working for your food provides you with information about your environment. Like, is the environment a good source of food? So all other species tested have shown this tendency to work for their food instead of preferring to get it for free. And 50 years ago, there was a study of 6 cats in a lab. It was a very small study, and it showed that cats did not contra freeload. And we thought, well, this seems weird. Why would every other species tested contra freeload except for cats? Someone needs to do this again. And so that was really what inspired us. And we wanted to look at house cats because, in a laboratory, cats might be under a lot of stress. It's not a very comfortable environment for them. So we thought, oh, well, look at how cats do in the home.
How in the devil did you set up a protocol for this study?
Yeah, we started by thinking about, well, what could we do to get cats to work for food that would be feasible? And so we picked out a food puzzle that they could work and extract food from. And we picked a food puzzle where we could give them a tray that was the exact same size and shape. So we were kind of controlling for the size and the shape of the object that they were interacting with. And also, so we're not just comparing the food puzzle to what they'd normally eat their food from, whether it's a plate or a bowl. And we had cat owners sign up for the study. We dropped off the equipment to them because this was happening right around the time of COVID. And, we train them how to set it up. But basically, they train their cats to make sure they could eat food from both the puzzle and the tray. So we introduced the new things to the cats so they wouldn't be stressed out. We know cats can get a little stressed out with novelty. So we gave them some time. The cats had to demonstrate that they could effectively get food out of the puzzle. And if they couldn't, we had to remove them from the study. So we had 3 cats that we dropped from the study because we didn't want them to, we were concerned about their safety, right? We didn't want any cats going on hunger strike.
Were they fat? No, they weren't. Could they have lost a few pounds?
Well, even with overweight cats, you don't want them to lose weight too fast,
of course. Okay.
Safety first. So we made sure that the cats knew how to use the puzzle before we finally enrolled them in the study. And then we also got them used to wearing a little activity tracker so that we could track their movements. And once they were set up, then we had the owners test them. We did 10 sessions where the cats had access to the same amount of food in the puzzle and the same amount of food in the tray for 30 minutes. And they video recorded what the cats did during that 30 minutes for each session. So we got 300 minutes of footage on each kitty. And we basically just measured which source of food did they go to first, which one did they eat more food from, and which one did they spend more time at. So that's how we measured their preference. And just to be clear, most of the cats in the study ate food from both. So it's not like they just completely rejected working for their food. It's just that they showed a very strong preference for the free food over the food in the puzzle.
Were there any differences in male and female subjects?
It's interesting, actually. And, we didn't find, so when you do research, you do statistical analysis, and that tells you kind of what factors might be related to the behavior you observed. So we looked at the sex of the cats, and we also looked at whether they had experience using a puzzle before. So some of the kitties had used different puzzles. None of them had used the one that we used in the study. And interestingly, neither of those things had a statistical effect. If you look at the data, what you'll see is that the 4 cats who showed kind of strong evidence for some contra freeloading, meaning they ate all of the food available to them from both the tray and the puzzle, were males. So there could be something there that someone could explore in the future and see if male cats are more food motivated. I mean, I do think that a lot of what maybe motivates cats to use the food puzzle is how hungry they are and how excited they are about food.
Talk about the use of these activity monitors on the cats in the studies. I mean, did you look at, how many steps they were taking? Or
yeah, so we used a product called the FitBark, which is a company, it's a company that designed it for dogs, but it's been adapted to cats. It's very small, and unfortunately, it doesn't give you like the number of steps your pet does a day. It's really like they have a proprietary algorithm, but it is what we call a triaxial accelerometer. So it uses the same technology as a Fitbit or any activity tracker that people use on themselves. So it's measuring movement in 3 dimensions. And so what we got was kind of a movement or activity measure called bark points, but it doesn't tell you the number of steps. But we could use that to compare. Like this cat only had this many activity points and this other cat had this many activity points. So we could look at the relationship. Originally, we thought that more active cats would be more likely to contra freeload. But again, sometimes you don't find the results you expected. We found no relationship between activity and a preference to use the food puzzle. So the lazier or less active cats were not really any different from the more active cats in their willingness to work for food.
In my practice, I have a number of pet parents that come in and complain that their canine, their dog, is eating too fast and then sometimes spits up afterwards.
Yeah.
So I sometimes recommend to them not only to lift the plate, but also use the puzzles. So it'd make it more difficult for the canine to get to the food and maybe eat a little more slowly. Do you find that that's the same consideration for cats?
Absolutely. In cats, we call that scarf and barf. And food puzzles. I mean, certainly, as you know, any cat who is vomiting frequently, we should not just treat that as
normal.
I mean, you should talk to your veterinarian and make sure your cat doesn't have any gastrointestinal problems or other issues that are going on. But assuming that your vet gives your cat the all clear, food puzzle is a great way to slow down their eating. We know that certainly if we eat too fast, sometimes we don't recognize we're full. And so I believe that, slowing down the feeding can help your pet maybe stop eating before they're full or before they've eaten more than they need. So we can reduce maybe their food intake or slow it down, and certainly try to get cats doing more of what's natural to them, which is to eat several small meals a day. That's kind of their hunting style, is to eat several small prey items throughout the day rather than eat large meals once or twice a day. So I definitely encourage the use of food puzzles, even if that's not cat's preference overall. And maybe your cat might be different. Your cat might love food puzzles. That I think there's a lot of benefits to using them. I use them with my own cats.
I was just curious. I mean, I would be curious what different types of food puzzles would be like. I mean, maybe this one was a little harder because your cat had to stick its paw in. Sure. What if it was more open? I mean, maybe that hindered the cat.
Certainly, as someone who advocates using food puzzles with cats, to then come out and say, well, cats don't like using food puzzles seems to be a contradiction. And really, you have to look at it. Well, we only had time to test one puzzle, and we tried to control as many other factors as possible, which is why we chose to feed the cats on the tray that was the same size and shape. But perhaps a stationary food puzzle doesn't inspire predatory behavior in cats, and maybe, movement or maybe something that's more similar to hunting behavior would stimulate them to use it more. So, there are food puzzles that move around, like the balls with the holes in it. You can put the kibble inside. And I think the other thing too is just in this case, the cats had only been exposed to the food puzzle for a few weeks. So maybe with more time, they would actually shift their preference as they got better at using the food puzzle. I mean, everyone knows when you're learning something new, it can get frustrating. And so if you're given the choice between doing something new and challenging versus doing something that's familiar and easy, we all gravitate towards the easy and familiar. And the other thing I always like to add is just, I might feel like sitting on my butt on the couch instead of going for a jog, but I know that after the run, I'll feel better. It's good for me. And so, just because I don't prefer it in the moment doesn't mean it might not have benefits.
What can pet owners take away from this study?
Yeah, I would say certainly this is not a mandate to like throw out your food puzzles. And if you haven't tried food puzzles, I would say it's worth trying. But I would also say it's important to introduce them slowly. You might want to try using them with treats or a novel food so that your cat is more curious and interested. Sometimes, you have to up the value of the food to make it more exciting.
High value food.
Yeah. And so if your cat is young and active and very food motivated, they're an excellent candidate for using food puzzles. If they're not as food motivated or older, you might want to just introduce it as a choice at first and just watch them carefully. But my last cat, she used food puzzles up to just a few weeks before she died. She was 16, and she enjoyed just fishing a few pieces of kibble out of her food puzzle. So, I would say don't rule it out, but just be thoughtful about it and don't force it on your cat. Like, don't expect them to just shift their behavior immediately. It might take some time for them to get used to it.
Well, it was such great talking to you, wasn't it?
Yes, it's very intriguing too.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm thinking about Hayden using a food puzzle.
And I'm intrigued too, because with COVID the way it is and the conflicts that we have in the medical community, which really aren't conflicts, it's studies that give us different directions that, with people, we're supposed to eat smaller amounts every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had another study with another group with cats, and they're supposed to eat just once a day.
Oh, yeah, I saw that study.
And, what are people supposed to believe? That's why we have you on. Give it to us strongly about what they should do.
Well, I think it's important to talk to a variety of people and see what leading research is out there and really find out what pet owners can take away. I mean, the fact of the matter is most of us serve up the food to our cats, and that's fine. The cats aren't really working in factories anymore. They're not like killing mice, or maybe that was Yorkies or something. Yeah. But I mean, and some cats really don't get served up food. They have to work for it. I mean, if you're a barn cat, maybe you're not getting fed, or you're a feral cat, maybe you're not getting fed. So I just think having these studies on, actually, most of them are really fascinating anyway, because I'm really interested in the protocols, I mean, we never really ask what kind of people enroll in the studies. So I'd kind of be curious, did you have more men or more gals? Sometimes we do ask that, depending if it's more interactive, the owner has to do something. But Dr. Mikel, it was great meeting you.
Thank you.
I'm going to do
fun studies.
It was fun.
Good.
Thanks for viewing our content on Pet Buzz Plus.